The HOA, a president, stood there in her bright red power suit, arms crossed, watching the police cruiser pull up to my apple orchard with a smile that could curdle milk. She had no idea she'd just triggered the biggest mistake of her entitled life. Picture this: early October morning in Meadowbrook Valley, Washington. Crisp air carrying the scent of ripe apples while I'm up on a ladder harvesting Honeycrisps when I hear tires crunching on gravel. Two county deputies approach, looking apologetic while Karen Westfield films everything on her iPhone like she's documenting war crimes instead of a guy picking fruit. "Ma'am," the younger officer says to her, "we need to investigate the complaint you filed about illegal commercial activity." Karen's perfectly manicured nails painted the same aggressive red as her designer suit tab against her phone case. "Officer, I've been documenting this agricultural eyesore for months. This is a residential community, not a farm. What would you do if your HOA tried to destroy your family's heritage over pure jealousy? Drop a comment and tell me where you're watching from. I bet you've dealt with someone just like Karen Westfield. My name is Daniel Crawford, and 2 years ago, I was a burned-out software engineer in Seattle, debugging code for tech startups and wondering if this was really what my grandfather envisioned when he paid for my college education. Then Grandpa Joe passed at 89, leaving me his 60-acre apple orchard in Meadowbrook Valley, the same orchard his father planted in 1934 during the Dust Bowl migration west. The property had been in continuous operation since FDR's first term. Heritage apple varieties you can't find in grocery stores anymore. Gravensteins, Newtown Pippins, Spitzenbergs. Trees planted by my great-grandfather's own hands, irrigated by water rights older than most cities in Washington state. I quit my soul-crushing tech job and moved into Grandpa Joe's farmhouse, where every floorboard tells a story and the kitchen still smells like the cinnamon he used in his famous apple butter. My rescue mutt, Luna, treats every delivery truck like a personal challenge. But after years in a sterile office cube, waking up to morning frost on apple blossoms felt like breathing for the first time. Karen Westfield arrived in Meadowbrook Valley like a hurricane wearing Laubautens. Former corporate attorney from California, married to tech money, and absolutely convinced her law degree gave her authority over everyone within a 5-mile radius. 3 years ago, she spearheaded Meadowbrook Heights, a gated community of identical Mediterranean-style houses that look like they were designed by an algorithm. Each home starts at $2.1 million and comes with an HOA run by Karen herself, because of course it does. Karen drives a red Tesla Model X that matches her signature power suits. Everything about her screams, "I want to speak to your manager," from her highlighted blonde hair to her designer sunglasses that cost more than most people's monthly rent. She'd been president of her San Jose HOA before moving here, getting recalled after neighbors revolted against her tyrannical enforcement of community standards. The trouble started when I replaced deteriorating fence posts along my eastern property line. Basic agricultural maintenance to keep deer out and maintain the orchard that's been here since before her grandmother was born. 6-foot wooden agricultural fencing, same as has existed on this property for 80 years. I'm out there on a Wednesday morning, post-hole digger in hand, when a red Tesla screeches to a stop 20 feet away. Karen emerges in full corporate battle armor, red blazer, white silk blouse, designer jeans that have never seen honest dirt, and heels that sink into my orchard soil like they're offended by its existence. "That fencing violates our community aesthetic standards," she announces, clipboard appearing from nowhere like a weapon. I lean on my shovel, keeping my tone friendly. "Ma'am, this orchard has been here since 1934. Your development went up 3 years ago." Her smile could freeze fire. "Times change, sweetie. This is Meadowbrook Heights now. We have property value standards to maintain." The way she said property value standards made it clear she thought my heritage orchard was some kind of zoning error that needed correction. "You'll be hearing from our legal team," she says, clicking back to her Tesla in heels that leave divots in my soil. That night, I got the first threatening letter. Cease agricultural operations. Remove non-conforming structures. Pay HOA assessment fees. Despite not being in her HOA, the demands were absurd. But the copy she'd sent to county officials, my insurance company, and local media showed this wasn't just a neighborly dispute. This was coordinated legal warfare. Here's what Karen didn't know. I might have been a software engineer, but my minor was in property law because Grandpa Joe always said, family land needs family lawyers. I spent that weekend in the county courthouse, going through property records that smelled like dust and forgotten justice. What I found made me actually laugh out loud in that musty records room. My great-grandfather's original 1934 deed included something called perpetual agricultural easements, legal protections created during the New Deal to prevent agricultural land from being seized or restricted. These weren't just suggestions. They were federally protected rights that supersede any HOA covenant created 90 years later. Better yet, my property boundaries extended further than I knew. The county road Karen used to access Meadowbrook Heights technically crosses an easement I inherited. My great-grandfather had granted the county right-of-way for public road access, but retained underlying land ownership, a common practice for farmers who wanted to help their communities without giving up their property. And here's the beautiful part. Those water rights Grandpa Joe mentioned in his will, they controlled the entire valley's water table. The wells serving Meadowbrook Heights were pulling from an aquifer I legally owned usage rights to, established in 1936 when water law actually meant something. Karen's response to my polite, "Please review property law before threatening me again," letter was predictable. She escalated like a toddler denied candy. Within a week, I received anonymous complaints to the county health department about my cider production, fire marshal, safety inspection, scheduled for my busiest harvest weekend, false IRS audit notice that turned out to be her attorney fishing for financial leverage, social media campaign claiming my orchard attracted rodents and decreased neighborhood property values. But her masterpiece was organizing an emergency community meeting to discuss the agricultural nuisance threatening our investment. I showed up to that circus with a folder full of legal documentation and the calm demeanor of someone holding a royal flush. Karen held court in her red blazer, presenting PowerPoints about property values and community standards to 40 homeowners who looked like hostages at their own execution. This commercial operation, she gestured at photos of my orchard like it was a hazardous waste site, represents everything we moved here to escape. Industrial blight in our residential paradise. Then I stood up. Ms. Westfield, I have some interesting historical facts to share. This orchard predates your development by 80 years. It's protected by federal agricultural preservation law. And that road you all use to access your homes crosses my property easement, which I can legally revoke for cause. The room went silent. Furthermore, I continued, pulling out survey maps. Your community wells are drawing from an aquifer I hold senior water rights to, established in 1936. Those rights allow me to reduce or redirect water allocation for any non-agricultural use that impacts my operations. Karen's red suit suddenly looked like a distress signal. Karen's next move was hiring expensive attorneys to file a nuisance lawsuit. Big mistake. Her lawyers clearly hadn't done basic title research, because their complaints cited zoning ordinances that explicitly exempted pre-existing agricultural operations with federal protections. Meanwhile, I'd hired Emma Chun, an agricultural rights attorney who specialized in destroying developers who thought farming families were easy targets. When I showed her Karen's harassment campaign and property records, her smile was predatory. "Daniel," she said, spreading documents across her conference table, "they've made every mistake possible." Harassment of protected agricultural operations is a federal civil rights violation under farming protection statutes. And that road access issue? That's leverage that could shut down their entire development. We filed countersuit for harassment, requested emergency protective orders, and sent notice to Karen's HO, a board that their president's actions were creating massive legal liability for every homeowner in Meadowbrook Heights. But here's where it got interesting. Emma discovered that Karen's husband, Richard Westfield, was a silent partner in the development company that built Meadowbrook Heights. This wasn't just a Karen being petty. This was financial warfare. They wanted my land to expand their development and figured harassing me would force a sale. The county inspector who came to investigate my violations was actually apologetic. "Mr. Crawford," he said, reviewing my grandfather's meticulous records, "everything here is not only legal but exemplary. Whoever filed these complaints either doesn't understand agricultural law or is deliberately wasting county resources." That's when Emma and I realized we weren't just fighting a petty HOA president. We were fighting a coordinated real estate scheme that had likely targeted other farming families in the valley. Word spread through Meadowbrook Valley like wildfire through dry grass. Turned out, 3 other farming families had received similar harassment from Karen's HO, old-timers who'd been working this land since before. Karen learned to spell property value. We formed the Meadowbrook Valley Agricultural Alliance, meeting in my barn every Thursday evening. The smell of fresh hay and determination mixing with homemade coffee and righteous anger. Tom Patterson, 4th-generation dairy farmer. They tried telling me my cows violated noise ordinances. At 5 a.m., like cows check HOA bylaws before mowing. Sarah Martinez, organic vegetable grower. Karen sent her attorney after me for unsightly garden structures. Those are my greenhouses, my livelihood. Each story revealed the same pattern. Karen's HOA systematically harassed farming families, filed false complaints, and created legal pressure to force land sales to her husband's development company. Emma documented everything, building a case that went beyond simple harassment into organized real estate fraud. Federal prosecutors started asking questions about Karen's community improvement campaign. Which brings us back to that October morning, with Karen in her red power suit, watching deputies investigate her complaint about my illegal commercial operation. The younger officer examines my permits while his partner reviews the property boundaries on his tablet. I can see the moment they realize what they're dealing with. "Ma'am," the senior deputy says to Karen, "this property is a federally protected heritage agricultural operation. All activities here are completely legal and have been for 90 years. Karen's confident smile falters. "But he's running a commercial business in a residential. "This is zoned agricultural, ma'am. Has been since 1934. The residential zoning only applies to Meadowbrook Heights, which is actually the newer development. But surely. Additionally," the deputy continues, clearly enjoying this, "we've been asked by the county attorney to inform you that filing false complaints against protected agricultural operations is a misdemeanor. This is your 3rd complaint in 2 months. We're required to issue you a citation." The color drains from Karen's face, leaving only the aggressive red of her suit. Furthermore, the county attorney wants to discuss your apparent campaign of harassment against multiple farming operations in violation of federal agricultural protection statutes. I sip my coffee, watching Karen's world collapse like a house of cards in a hurricane. The next 6 months were spectacular. Karen's HOA board, faced with massive legal liability from her actions, voted unanimously to remove her as president. Her husband's development company faced federal investigation for systematic harassment of agricultural families to acquire land below market value. The county attorney filed charges for filing false police reports, harassment, and conspiracy to commit real estate fraud. Karen's red Tesla became her shame mobile as she tried sneaking around the valley avoiding process servers. Best part? The water rights issue. I filed notice with the state that Meadowbrook Heights wells were impacting my agricultural water allocation. The State Water Board ordered usage restrictions during growing season, meaning Karen's neighbors got to experience reduced water pressure every summer because of her harassment campaign. Her marriage didn't survive the legal bills and federal investigation. Richard Westfield divorced her faster than you can say prenuptial agreement, leaving her with legal debts and community contempt. The Meadowbrook Valley Agricultural Alliance became a regional model for defending farming families against development pressure. We created legal defense funds, shared attorney resources, and educated farmers about their rights. Today, my orchard is thriving. Heritage apple varieties that almost went extinct are now sought after by restaurants and cideries across the Pacific Northwest. My U-Pick weekends draw families from Seattle who want their kids to understand where food actually comes from. The farmhouse Grandpa Joe left me has become headquarters for agricultural education programs. Local schools bring kids to learn about heritage agriculture, sustainable farming, and why family farms matter more than cookie-cutter developments. Luna the rescue mutt has become an unofficial therapy dog for the farming community, offering comfort to families facing their own HOA battles. Karen, last I heard, she moved back to California, working as a contract paralegal and keeping her opinions about property values to herself. Funny how federal conviction cures entitlement syndrome. The real victory is community transformation. Meadowbrook Valley received official agricultural heritage district status, protecting family farms from development pressure with legal protections that actually have teeth. No more McMansion invasions. No more corporate Karens trying to turn farmland into suburban wasteland. Just families working land their great-grandparents planted, growing food that matters and defending the heritage that makes this valley special. Your HOA Karen thinks money and lawyers can bulldoze anyone. But here's what they never count on. Family farmers who know their rights, community members who stand together, and legal protections that existed before their McMansions were even imagined. Knowledge is power. Those old deeds your grandparents left you? Read them. Those water rights and agricultural easements? They're legal weapons Karen's expensive attorneys never see coming. The best revenge isn't just winning. It's using their own legal system against them while protecting something that actually matters. Drop a comment about your HOA nightmare. Hit subscribe if you want more stories about ordinary people who refuse to surrender their heritage to entitled developers who think the world exists for their property values. My great-grandfather's apple trees bloom every spring, more beautiful than any gated community could ever be. Some legacies can't be bulldozed, no matter how red your power suit is. And sometimes, justice tastes sweeter than the best apple harvest you ever grew.